Yo, it's Marcus Scraper, and boy, did we have an interesting Monday. And we made a video a couple days ago talking about what we thought would happen on Monday, a few levels to look at. And it's just interesting because we knew that deliveries beat expectations, and basically, the consensus probably was that the stock was going to go higher. But the main point for the video that I made was where would the stock go and what kind of levels that we want to pay attention to in terms of that could be possibly interesting to watch and basically document my thoughts and see on Monday, when Monday comes, where the stock price went. Was it similar? Was it completely off? What was correct about it and what was incorrect about it? So let's dig at all of those things. And in addition, just know that when I'm saying that I think that the stock might go here and there, nobody knows where the stock's going to go. And even if I was right this time, just know that no one knows where the stock's going to go. And it's just interesting. And there were a few people that kind of got offended or upset by my video saying that I don't know anything about Tesla stock and that the price is going to go to 750 come Monday and other things like that. And my response, generally speaking, is why not just wait to Monday to see what happens and if what I'm saying either makes sense or criticize what I said because it didn't happen. And that's completely fine. I'm not even saying the things I'm saying is going to happen. It's just what I'm personally paying attention to and watching and kind of interested in these levels. Okay, let's just get into this. But before we get into this video, if you get any value from this content, don't forget to smash down on that like button. It really helps this content, helps other people see this video. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. It's free to do, and I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so right over here, in the last episode, we talked about this line right here. And this is the line that we introduced before last video. We actually introduced it on April 1st when we had this candle here. Basically, we saw that this resistance is a real thing that we want to be paying attention to. And so this is a line that we've been paying attention to before the last video and before today. And the main point of the last video was that I thought we were going to gap above this line. That's the main point, is that we're going to gap above this line. And I thought that price was going to be around where this line was. And I said that, I think I said like 690 or 689. Let's run the clip. What number is that exactly? We're talking about a price of around $689 or so, $688 around here. So I think we're going to gap up around here. We might gap up a little bit under this. I think we're going to go higher. And now that we saw what actually happened, we could see that I think arguably this line seems to be pretty significant. We happen to close right above this line. So that was pretty interesting. And what do we think that price might do in the coming days and the coming weeks? And what about this wick to the downside? What was this here? And is this something that we can kind of explain? Why did we do this? Well, first of all, we definitely filled the gap, but we did more than just fill the gap to get down here. Going to this line was enough to fill the gap. So what was this and why did we go down there? And actually, it is an interesting point to pay attention to and look into why it actually happened. If we look at the moving average and we look at the 100-day moving average and kind of put this onto the chart here, we can see that we bounced right off of the 100-day moving average. So that's pretty interesting. This is also bullish. We were able to stay above the 100-day moving average, in addition to clearly gapping over this line that was once resistance that now becomes a line of support. And that's just how this game works. If technical analysis, and whether you like technical analysis or whether you don't and you think it's just something that's made up and isn't really a real thing, and I'm not sure why you're watching this video if you don't think it's a real thing, and that's completely fine. There's a lot of things involved in this. There's luck, there's different things that happen, but these indicators and these things do show up, and we don't know if this line was going to be important or whether it was going to be the 100-period moving average that was going to be important, but it ended up being both this line and this 100-period moving average was important. And it's interesting to look into why did we go below this line here, and it was to in fact bounce off of this 100-period moving average, or price had weakness and found support at the 100-period moving average where we bounced above it and again closed above this line. And this is a, generally speaking, we're talking about a bullish scenario here. We closed above this line. We could have closed below this line, but we closed above it. So that is bullish. And in addition, beyond that, what is the other lines that I mentioned in my last video? Just to recap here, we had this line from the high of the candle on January 25th. We drew this line over here, and we're just basically trying to get it from the tops of the next couple of candles over here. And basically, we make a line that looks something like this. This is the area that I would think we'd have the next area of resistance. Maybe it's intraday, maybe we hit it, maybe we can't go above it the first time we hit this line. Over the next few days, I mentioned that this could be over the next this week or maybe even next week before we get to this and break above this. I think it's going to happen relatively soon, is at least my guess. Maybe this week, but we'll find out what happens. And in addition, if we look at the next significant area, and I will draw these lines in different colors next time just to kind of distinguish these things. And I mentioned that there's an interesting line of resistance plus a gap right here. And this is the, again, triangle that we are watching here. And I think this line should be drawn at the 780 mark, basically. Again, there are a few different areas converging here. I'm not exactly sure in terms of the dollar amount here, but basically this is the area that I'm expecting us to go through. Maybe we spike through it. And this is, again, the ascending triangle that I'm watching. And besides Tesla, let's take a look at a few other things. In the S&P 500, this is the channel that we've been watching, and interestingly enough, we hit the top of this channel today. Exactly. So this is pretty interesting. And what's going to happen next will be pretty interesting. We do have some gnarly holes or gaps in the chart here. I mentioned that there is evidence that this gap won't be filled anytime soon, talking about the basically the gap that we saw from the SPY when we hit 100 back in the day. You can check the video over here, but basically we talked about how and showed the example there why there's a potential bullish scenario where we don't come back to this level. Now, this gap is kind of ridiculous. Will we come back and fill this gap? This is a gap that I think that we'd probably fill in the near future. However, if we do end up gapping above this line in the next couple of days, maybe tomorrow or the next couple of days, if this actually happens, then this changes the whole game for when we would come back down here and fill this gap. But it would be very reasonable for us to go back down, retest 4,000 from the upside. But again, if we gap above this huge massive trend line here, all bets are off of when we'd come back down and fill this gap over here. If we look at Apple right here, we can see that we've been talking about this 150 period moving average for quite some time here, and that this was pretty important. And the last time we talked about we covered this stock in this video, which was on the first, we saw that we closed right above the 150 period moving average, and we saw that as a very bullish thing. And we can see that we went pretty massively to the upside, and also we kind of bounced off of it yet again today on the 5th. And finally, back on Tesla, one thing just to be aware of. So we talked about basically the areas to the upside to be paying attention to, but again, we have to be aware of the downside. So we have this 100 period moving average. We have this trend line here that we would want to stay above to make everything valid in terms of all of these things that we're saying in terms of this ascending triangle. Well, these things can all still be valid because even if we fall back into this triangle here that we've been trading in, this could be something that we just keep trading within, right? So this is something to pay attention to. And one other thing to mention here is what is the amplitude actually for this move? That could be interesting to pay attention to. So let's find out what the amplitude of this move actually is. So if I want to find the amplitude of this move, basically, I will just make a line from here to here, and let's see what that looks like. Basically, we broke out right here. Interesting. So the amplitude here says we are going to go potentially to 784. So this is something to pay attention to, whether or not we actually, and again, this is not exact, I'm kind of eyeballing it, might be a little bit higher, might be a little bit lower, but you can see that this looks like it's around 786. Again, it's not perfectly aligned to the downside, but this would be the amplitude move from this breakout if we are actually breaking out here. And it's actually somewhat in line with the resistance at 780 that we are seeing. And so maybe we actually go a little bit higher. And if this is the case, maybe that means we should move our triangle up here a little bit. I'm not sure. This is something that could be interesting. This is basically gives us an awareness. I'm going to leave this right now at around 780. But if we break out over 780, let's expect that it wouldn't be crazy for us to wick up past this line a little bit based again on the amplitude move of this triangle that we have been trading in. And now that we just broke out here. Well, I hope you guys got some value from this content. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And keep in mind that none of this is financial advice. This is just some random guy on YouTube drawing some stick figure lines on a chart talking to you guys.